One, testing, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, over. Today is the 7th day of August, 1995. Hensley speaking. Today I will be interviewing Mr. Artie E. Akers of 229 McPhee Road in Farragut, Tennessee. Mr. Akers, we'd like to get for the record your experiences in World War II, and if you will, start back before you were in the service. Whether you want to start in any age you want to start, but bring us right on. First, we'll go from everything where you start till you go, then I'll stop you and we'll start again right there, okay? And I might interrupt you, during this.
You want my birthplace on?
Mm-hmm, yeah.
Well, I was born in Jenkins, Kentucky.
Okay.
March 15th, 1920.
Okay.
And I attended school in Lewis County, Kentucky.
Okay.
Through the 8th grade, and I went to high school at Wayland, Kentucky, which is a coal mining camp.
Right.
And I joined the Navy when I was almost 18 years old, and went to boot camp at Norfolk, Virginia. And there's where I found out my name was not Archie. Not Artie, but it's Archie. It's not Archie, but it's Artie.
Right.
A-R-T-I-E, due to a mistake in my birth certificate. So I re-enlisted, they discharged me, and I re-enlisted under a new name. And I was first in the class for just general tests, they make on you. And so I was sent to the fleet, the Pacific Fleet, and I rode a transport around through the canal and up to San Diego. And
okay. Let's see how it. Okay.
Okay.
Right.
Well, keep in mind that I had joined the service for this reason, to travel.
Mm-hmm.
And number two was I did not want to be a coal miner. So I thought the world offered me a little bit more. So when I got to San Diego, and I volunteered for the submarine service. And so they took me sent me on to Pearl Harbor. And at Pearl Harbor, I was put on an old tramp steamer they owned called the Beaver, USS Beaver. And it was very old.
What year was this?
This would be in 1939.
Okay.
And the Beaver didn't move very much back then. So I was on as a crew. And then they sent me off there over to the base to radio school. And again, I made the number one in the class of radio school. And it came time to go up for promotion. And I didn't want to be a candidate for the first class seaman's rate, which you can get the first year you're in service. I wanted to hold out for the third class petty officer, which was 16 months in service. And so I could stand any of the watches and duties of a regular radioman in the Navy. On the fast circuits too, I could handle the real fast circuits. And so we took the exam, and I made a perfect score on the thing. And but I could only get 80 points for it, because you had to have so much of your time in the Navy. So the guys who'd been in 10, 12 years would get the extra 20 points, see.
Mm-hmm.
And I think I had 1.5 points built up, so I had 81.5 points that I had. And Lieutenant Glenn Donahoe, who later became noted as an admiral, and he was my division officer at Submarine Squadron 1. And he said, Akers, I want to sound you for you. So another young man there in the squadron had more time than I had in, and he had made third class petty officer, but he was selected for the academy, Naval Academy. And I was up to the academy myself, but I didn't have enough sea time. I had to have a year of sea duty to go to the academy. So this kid went on to the academy and left a rate there unfilled. So Lieutenant Donahoe got me that rate, third class petty officer. And I only had 15 months in the Navy. He was supposed to have 16, but he held the rate for me for a month till I got ready for it. So then I stayed around there and watched the bases. I should watch it every night, you know. And now we were the squadron commander, was in our base there, squadron commander, submarine squadron 4, and we had to hold radio watch around the clock because when the submarines come in from sea, they secure everything, and we took over their duties and watching for their messages and taking them to them, you know. And so I got in a little trouble. I only had 3 radiomen there on the bases qualified to stand watches, and I was one of those 3. But one of the other 3 got over in town in Honolulu and got in a fight, broke a barber's nose. They had him in the brig, but they told him that he's on bread and water 10 days. They told him every time he'd stand a watch that they'd give him a meal. Well, they let him off to go to watch one night. He didn't go to watch. He went over on the beach again, you know, and they caught him. So I was on watch. I've been on watch 8 hours, and there's no enlisted men's bathroom upstairs, 3rd floor of the administration building in Pearl Harbor, and submarine base in Pearl Harbor. So I had to go to the bathroom. And I sneaked into the officer's bathroom, and lo and behold, Lieutenant Donahoe caught me coming out. So they held deck court on me for the captain, and he sent me to 10 days in the brig. And after chewing me out, you know. So, but they told him that left 2 of his radiomen in the brig. He's only got only 1 man left to man the radio shacks. He said, okay.
Even knowing why you had to go after 8 hours, they still gave you 10 days in the brig.
Yeah.
Oh.
So I was on watch and doing my job, and my uncle, who happened to be Congressman May from Kentucky, was visiting the harbor. And my mother thought I ran the Navy, so she told us, I'd be sure to look up Archie when you're out there. And he did. So he gets on the base, and there's all these admirals sitting around, you know, and he said to Admiral, I forget his name, I'll think of it in a minute. He said, hey, I've got a nephew serving here named Artie Akers. The captain turned around and said, go find Akers, you know. Well, he found Akers in the brig because I was off watch, so I had to be in the brig, you know. So I walked in, I got a big P on my chest. And my uncle looked at me and said, oh, what in the hell happened to you? And I told him. And he turned around with a full captain. He says, you mean to tell me that this kid, you threw him in the brig because he didn't leave the range of his loudspeaker, had to relieve himself after 8 hours. He says, what kind of a damn ship are you running here? Boy, he chewed him out, up and down. So they took and rescinded my 10 days in the brig, bread and water, and cleaned my records clean. Mm-hmm. But the following week, I was transferred to the Tarpon, which is going to the Asiatic Fleet. I'm the first guy to get shanghaied, to my knowledge, out of the radio shack, you know. So, but I never held anything wrong. You know, that's the way they do things now.
Yeah, right.
But I got to Pearl Harbor, I got to Manila, and I went aboard the Permit.
What year was this now?
This would be 1939.
Still 39.
Still 39.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. And Admiral Chapel, Moon Chapel, who later became very famous too, was a very good friend of mine, and he was the engineering officer on the Permit. And I kept my nose clean and made 2nd class, and then I got ruptured, and I had to go to the hospital. So I went to Kanakaw to the Cavite to the Navy hospital. It was operated on, but when I came back to the mother ship, my submarine was in China. So they put me on another submarine, the Permit, P-E-R-M-I-T. Yeah. And we went to China also. And I stayed up in China. We went up there this summer, you know, and went to Tsingtao, all those places, Shanghai. And I came back to Pearl Harbor, to Manila, and stayed a year in Manila. Then one night, this was in 41, I had had gotten transferred to the submarine tender, Otis, O-T-U-S. And the Otis had been a commercial ship. And she had just been up to Tokyo to deliver 23,000 barrels of aviation gasoline. And this is around the 4th, 5th of December, when I got aboard her. And we pulled over to what later became Bataan, Maribalis, in the harbor, just across the isthmus from water from Port Cricketore.
Mm-hmm.
And I was on watch. It was about 2 o'clock in the morning. And I had never received an operational priority message on an air. And the operational priority message is always preceded by, in those days, OP on the air, on code. And so I got this magic word, OP, so I grabbed it and didn't keep it on my regular log. I grabbed a message blank and copied it on the message blank. And it was to all U.S. Navy ships and all naval stations from the Secretary of the Navy. It says BT break, no count, no as fast as they can get it out, you know. Mm-hmm. Don't measure counting the words and right. Do that. He said, Japan has commenced hostilities. Govern yourselves accordingly. Signed, the Secretary of the Navy. It took me about a minute to realize, hey, we're at war. See? So I jumped up and grabbed my deal and was up on the top deck of the Otis, and I ran around to the captain's cabin, which was around our level, and pounded on his door. He'd come to the door, I handed the message. He just reached and got General Quarters bill. Woke the whole ship up, General Quarters, you know. And we had 6 submarines alongside. So he started to woke those all up. We started loading those torpedoes on. We didn't have a full load of torpedoes on our ships, you know. Mm-hmm. But within 3 hours, they were all gone. They were gone at sea. In fact, 6 hours later, the Sea Wolf sunk a ship outside the harbor, a Japanese ship. So the next day, we went over to the Navy Yard at Cavite, because we didn't have a gun on board that thing, you know, to get anti-aircraft guns and deck guns. Again, I was called by the chief boatswain mate to stand watch on a 3-inch anti-aircraft gun, which I didn't know a thing in the world about, you know. But I'm the firing pointer. I know it. So at 12:44, you can look up in the sky out seaward and see these little silver dots. 17 of them. No, 10 of them. The first group was 10. And it was the Japanese bombers. They came in, went up through and bombed the fuel dumps over at where the seaplanes had their base. Then they pulled over and got the Navy Yard at Cavite. Then went around and give Clark Field slugging, then left the harbor. Mm-hmm. And by this time, there's 17 more of those guys up there. They did the same thing, except they worked the ships over in the harbor. Then 27 came in the last deal. By this time, they had just blown the hell out of Navy Yard, you know. And a lot of fires. And there's one of the submarines. There was 2 submarines tied. We were tied to like this at a pier, and there's 2 submarines like that over here, and 2 destroyers like that over here. And they hit one of these submarines, the Sea Line. I think the Sea Line hit the Sea Line, and they hit one of the destroyers, John D. Edwards, I believe it was. And there was a little, real comical. Real nickel grabber coming from Manila over to the taxi, water taxi. Mm-hmm. And a bomb hit that thing, and it just went on down. It didn't even stop. The bomb hit right and it stacked that thing. I was standing 150 feet out down. So they finally relieved me because we were using 3-inch guns, 3-inch 150s, and they wouldn't go up high enough. You could only shoot about 9,000 feet. These guys were up around 20,000 feet bombers from. We had one P-40, and he was up there getting them above them and diving down through them, and he got shot down, I think, by us, because he drove down into our flak. We had a border flak up there, but it was all 10,000 feet. So he landed over in the salt paddy. and they left. And a few hours after they left, 2 British destroyers stood into the harbor. And they had 5-inch 38 guns, which would go high enough to get any of them, you know. 2 hours late, 2 hours too late. So I was called away on a fire and rescue party, and I went over to the sea line, and I saw a dead guy laying there, and his head was all blown off, you know. And I went to the back end of the ship I got a fire extinguisher on the back end of the submarine. There's a big hole back there, and you can look down and see there's a couple of guys laying down there, you know. And I came back, and that was my first day in the season.
You see how we're doing here? See how this is? Okay, here we go.
Yeah. Okay.
Right.
At the time, I got the operational priority message from the Secretary of the Navy. I was alone in a radio shack, and within 5 minutes, I had 2 or 3 more guys up there with me, helping me, you know. And keep in mind, I was a third-class petty officer, and I'm on some real fast circuits, and I need help. So they came up and helped me, and then the next message came through. Operational priority message was from Franklin D. Roosevelt, the president. It said, all naval stations, all men of war, everybody, execute War Plan 46 against Japan. And that we knew we were into it then. So.
Yeah.
And after that, that was after I'd gone to the captain and give him the first message. Because he got this one, we were already ahead, we were fighting the war already. Well, anyway, the next morning, we left there and went out to Manila, in the Bay of Manila, and which is the base of Dewey Dry Doctors out there. It's sort of a base of Peninsula, Bataan Peninsula.
Okay.
And Dewey Dry Dock was out there, and we were out there, and the submarines were coming aboard alongside us to get new torpedoes. We got the torpedoes.
Right.
And so we did that for 2 days out there. And one day, and then they took us back into the harbor, and that's when we got the bombing.
Yeah.
A lot of things happened those 2 days, you know. And we were copying the messages. I was copying the dispatches and the news, international news on Pearl Harbor. See, they actually bombed Pearl Harbor and sunk all the ships and whatnot. It sunk them, and so it was a real bad day and a bad week. And then we got our orders after we had got into the dry dock over at Mariveles, you know, and didn't get any guns put in yet. But they told us to come back to the Navy Yard and get the guns, the big guns. And that's the day we got bombed out. There's no more Navy Yard. That thing just a wreck. So we got underway and headed south with 3 or 4 destroyers that were really damaged, you know, badly. And we couldn't run fast enough to keep ahead of the Japs. They were after us. And we got to Tel Java. And got there, and the Japs were already being there. So we kept right on going, south. And we ended up down in Darwin, Australia, North Australia. The skipjack came in. She'd been on a short patrol run, and she needed a radioman. So they sent me to the skipjack. And that's where I left. And I was glad to go to get away from those surface crafts. It's dangerous in those things, you know.
Yeah.
So I went to the skipjack, and we, I'm going to tell you like it is now. Okay? We had a captain, commanding officer, that just didn't want to fight, I'm telling you.
Mm-hmm.
And we made 2 runs with him, and nothing, you know. And so finally they relieved him. And we came, this time we've been 2 trips out of Australia, and in June probably June of that year, you know, 42. And we were operating out of Fremantle, West Australia, which is the harbor for Perth.
Mm-hmm.
And some of the submarines, they got afraid to leave us there because we were so we just weren't able to defend ourselves at all. We got big holes in us, from overhauling the ship and everything. So they sent us down around the Leuven to a place called Albany, West Australia. And there it was pretty safe because it was a long way off. And the day after I got there, this young man came aboard, a lieutenant, J.G. lieutenant too at that. And he took command. His name was James Wiggins Coe. Luckily, his girlfriend, my girlfriend, were sisters in Australia. So I got it made. But he didn't know the meaning of the word fear. The guy didn't. And we were friends, but I was still respectful in all ways to him. But he was the captain.
Right.
And he promoted me up to second class radio. And I was in charge of his groups,
Mm-hmm.
Second class in charge of all the group. And we made 4 runs with him. And he was wholly terrible. So we were up off the coast of French Indochina. And I went up the top side to get some fresh air. And to go up there and do this, you got to be on watch. You got to get your pair of binoculars and relieve on the
Mm-hmm.
lookout. And I had perfect vision, And I found a little black splotch on the horizon. And I called to the captain, to the officer of deck's attention. We went over there, and sure enough, it's a ship. But he was going into French Cameron Bay, French Indochina, and there's some rocks on the port side of us. We didn't want to get in the rocks, so we said, okay, we can't shoot him today, but we'll watch him. We'll get him when he comes out, we did. We patrolled out there and for 2 to 3 days, and finally the captain said, well, he's going to come out tonight because he's loading up. So he came out, and we escorted him up the coast towards Saigon. And about 7 o'clock in the morning, we were down 10 miles ahead of him, coming back at him. Perfect angle, on the bow, 15 degrees on the bow. And the captain said, Akers is the conning tower. That's on the sound gears. And I went up there, and he said, well, you found him. You shoot him. So his rule was the guy who found the ship got to push it first. Torpedo and fire. So he said, stand by. Get ready. Fire. And I just pushed the button, and the ship shakes a little bit. And the torpedo took off. 28 seconds later, it exploded. And it blew him out of the water. So that was our first ship was sunk.
Well, now, see, when you fired, were you all submerged or on top?
Oh, well, we're down submerged.
Yeah, I see. Yeah. Oh, don't you?
Yeah, you don't.
When you were following him, you were submerged all the time?
Huh?
When you were following him or keeping track, running parallel with him and getting ahead of him, were you submerged all the time?
That was nighttime. It was just over the horizon.
Yeah.
But Captain Cole would take the hit. Anyhow. See, and so he was out to win the war. Everybody loved him, but.
Yeah.
And he had an executive officer, Merrill Clemenson, who was lieutenant commander later on. Was just as bold as he was. J.J. Foote, his engineering officer, just as bold as he was. But they were all fighting the war.
Yeah, right.
And every man on the crew was. I never saw a man grunt or any of them show any fear. I was probably the scariest of all of them, but I'd put them noise.
Right.
So,
yeah.
But Captain Cole sank a lot of ships. He got the Navy. And anytime he gets the Navy Cross, he can rate a man 4 men captain up to chief petty officer. But even without that, he had the authority to rate any man he wanted to on that ship up to first class.
I see.
So I'd been first class for a long time, and so he left the ship, but he left me chief, youngest chief ever to serve in the United States Navy with me.
Oh, me
Yeah, I was 23 years old.
Gosh, that's something.
But he got killed. I almost got killed with him because he was going to take me with him to the Cisco. He went back to the East Coast and got to Cisco. a new ship. Never came back off the first patrol. He was lost. So, James Coe.
He came back to the East Coast. East Coast of what? East Coast, you said.
The United States.
The United States,
and
and picked up his
He
ship.
picked up a brand new submarine thing.
Yeah. And then he took it on
Went down
over.
through the canal,
Yeah.
back out the Pacific. So.
And then the first war patrol he went on.
Yeah, well, he won his first war patrol at the end. When he hit the Pacific, he was on war patrol.
I see, yeah.
But he never came back.
back.
Yeah, but you could stay out 90 days, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And,
Yeah, that's right.
Along about that time too, the Bureau of Ships personnel passed a rule that any person in the submarine service who had made 4 consecutive runs on a submarine, that the commanding officer was directed to transfer him to a new construction in the States or give him 30 days leave in the stateside. And I collected the 30 days leave in the stateside and went home, visited my mother and father, and came back. And but
Was that in 42 or 43?
42, yeah. Yeah, 43.
Okay.
Because I had a time fever, and this was back when Cole was my commanding officer,
Mm-hmm.
42, late 42. And every day at 4 o'clock Greenwich Mean Time, my fever would go to 103 degrees and stay there till 10 o'clock at night. And it was just terrible. You know?
Yeah.
So they, when I was on that 30-day leave to see my mother, I got orders from the Bureau of Medicine and Surgery to report directly to the Walter Memorial Hospital in Chicago. And I went there, and they put me under all kind of tests, had me out at Northwestern University.
Mm-hmm.
And I'd be walking along the street and just pass out. end up in a brig. So finally they gave me a tag. Says, this man's found in the streets of Wesley Memorial Hospital. Don't take him to the brig. And I still have it.
Is that
I
right?
still have it, you know. But it's not near as bad as it was.
Yeah.
You know. But I never asked for a pension, Helen. All I wanted to do was get out of that place, you know.
Yeah, right.
But I went to radio school when I was in the hospital, seminary radio school, and I finally went back to the fleet again, but the war was almost over.
I see.
So the first 2 years of the war, though, I had really a tough time, and the rest of it was easy. See, but
Well, that was a
I was
tough
sick.
time, wasn't it?
Huh?
It was those first 2 years was
Yeah.
a real tough time. Of course,
But
in
I-
the submarine service, I'm sure it was tough to the bitter end.
You just didn't see the sun for 90 days, you know, no sunshine. Now they got sun lamps and everything else.
Mm.
But you know, the thing that struck me about the friends had up there in the paper was the grunt, you know. And actually, I'll tell you, some of those so-called grunts deserve a heck of a lot more than they ever got.
No, I'm sure so, yeah.
We had gentleman Tom Collins, I was just telling you a
Mhm.
while ago. Well, gentleman Tom Collins was from Chicago, and he was just loved the Navy. And he didn't want to go in. He made first-class seaman, and that always made him a senior seaman on the ship because you just don't have first-class on submarines, you know. And so he didn't want anything else. He didn't want anything. So we had we came back from one of the runs, and the captain called all the department heads into the boardroom, and we went in, and he said, "Now," he said, "I've got to do something about Collins." He said, "He won't take an examination." And so he turned around to me and said, "Akers, can you use him?" I said, "No, I can't use him, Captain, because he doesn't know the code. And he can't stand sonar watches now, because you got to stand double watches now." So, but we all said, "Well, we know what you can do, Captain. Make him a torpedoman. Make him a third-class torpedoman, and that's it." And kiddingly, we said, "A third-class torpedoman doesn't have to know anything." We were kidding the chief of the boat. He was the chief torpedoman. So they made Collins the third-class torpedoman. And we called him the gentleman torpedoman. And so on the very next run, we went down to Truck, big Japanese base down in Truck.
Yeah.
And we had tied into and sunk a tanker up off of Timor, island of Timor, and attacked another ship off a truck. And Collins, our gentleman torpedoman, I was in the forward torpedo room, assigned up there, the chief torpedoman, and I forget his name offhand. But old Collins was up on watch in the forward torpedo room, and a tanker came by, oil tanker. That's a big oil country now, and on the sound gear we could hear him coming. And they have on the sound gear they have their own particular whoosh whoosh, you know.
Yeah.
So we fired, and the damn torpedo took off at him and hit him in the rear end. But he had two of those little bitty Japanese patrol boats with him, and on the tube stuck in the forward torpedo room of our ship. And we're starting taking all this water out of the forward torpedo room, and couldn't close the poppet valve. So the gentleman torpedoman waded through the water up to his waist and got in between those torpedo tubes and closed that valve by hand. And we started to pump and pumped it out. But we were setting an angle like that.
Good gosh.
Not like that. Front edge down.
Yeah.
And so now here was a grunt that saved that ship. We were going, boy. Our ass and our rear end would be out of the water in a few more minutes. Yeah, it would have been that thing like that.
Mm-hmm. Right.
But Collins went in there on his own, and he had the nerve and the guts and the ability, and he closed that valve, poppet valve by hand. A poppet valve is located on top of the torpedo tube, and it's a whole section about that long with a tube, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And when you fire the torpedo out, there's water all around the torpedo. You know?
Yeah.
You flood
right.
it. And when the doors open, front doors open, forward doors open, and when the torpedo moves past that slot, then this valve is supposed to slap back down.
Yeah,
You'll always get some water. You'll always get some water in there.
Mm-hmm.
But it didn't come down. And he went in, and boy, that's a big, that long, there's a hole that long and that wide is open to the surface, and we're 100 feet.
Good gosh.
And that's 44 pounds per square inch pressure.
Well, did he get at least a decoration for that?
I think I left the ship that time, and I don't know what he did, but I'm sure he did. He got some kind of foundation.
Have you got other missions on that skipjack that you can tell me about? Let's see, we've talked about what, 2 or 3 of them.
2 or 3, yeah. Well,
that were, you had some experiences then.
Well, when we had to come back to Mare Island Navy Yard. Now this would be in '43, early '43,
mm-hmm.
and get a new periscope.
Mm-hmm.
And when we left Mare Island Navy Yard in San Francisco, Cole was the commanding officer. No, Malumpy was the commanding officer. Now Malumpy was just like Cole. He wasn't afraid of anything. Mm-hmm. We didn't dive until we looked to see Fujiyama. We didn't dive. We stayed on the surface all the way to Japan.
Gosh.
We were scared to death of this guy out of Malumpy. Nope. But we were looking to see Fuji, not Fuji. Yeah. We made trim dives every morning.
Yeah.
But boy, he was going to go 20 knots. He wasn't going to run on the sea stuff, And Malumpy was a good skipper, yeah. But Cole was the guy everybody loved him, And Clemenson, his exec, went and got his own submarine, and Ray's hell. He was a good skipper too. And we had another skipper which wasn't too good, and he only lasted 2 runs. But the guy had guts. I don't want to know him. He'd have been a hell of a surface craft skipper.
Mm-hmm.
But he just couldn't push the submarine down high. There's something he put 50 feet of water over his head and just. But I liked the guy. He was a real nice guy. I won't tell you his name, but he was a real nice guy.
He just couldn't operate.
He was in the wrong niche.
Oh yeah, well, that happens. Yeah.
He should have been a cruiser captain, maybe a cruiser. Boy, he'd have been a tremendous one.
Well, it must take a certain type person and personality to from the grunt on up to serving submarines.
I got to tell you one story about a grunt. Well, one of the runs there, we came in Pearl Harbor, and we got a bunch of recruits on board, and of course they had to transfer 25% of the crew, and so this is a young boy came up, man. He couldn't have been a day over 16, 17, Of course, I wasn't as old. I was 22. So he said, "You want to get in the radio gang?" I said, "What's your name?" He said, "My name is Win Rylander. He's from Minnesota." And I don't think he'd ever shaved. Okay, well, I need a striker anyway. And if I'll talk to Jerry, the chief of the boat, and get you put back here. But I said, "Now you're going to have to study and learn, because we only got 4 men in this group, and they got to work." He said, "Okay, I will, Chief, I will." And he called me Chief, but I wasn't a chief at that time. I was a head of the department. So I taught him the code, game radio watch, and so he stand the radio watch. And I had to watch him go and make sure he got right. And then I got him where you stand the sonar watch. And so on that run out, I didn't trust him on the sonar gear this quick, because we were having a real tough time. We tied into a convoy, and we sank one ship, and then the 2 Japanese destroyers up there, and they were mad at us. So we were down at unquestioned depth. They didn't know how deep we could go. That's the best kept secret out there. They thought we'd go 267, and we could go a lot farther than that. And so we were down so far, it was pathetic, And I was doing the talking, and John Bolway, as you walk into the forward torpedo room, you come out on a platform from an officer's country. Back here's officer's country, or the back of the ship, And there's a little platform there, and 4 steps. But the platform's no bigger than that, and there's 4 steps down to the main deck for forward torpedo room. Now, as you look over to the right here, there's a sonar system over there, and a receiver, and there's a chair, and that particular listening head goes up to the top of the ship. Then over here is another one. The listening head goes down, and there's there. So I was talking. I had been on this one here about 14 hours. So John Bolway, my number 2 man, was over here on this one. So finally I went up and I talked. I talked for a couple hours. And so Rylander came by, and I said, "Okay, Wayne, come over." And I said, "You've seen me. Now this here's got a big dial on it." And I said, "When that 0 is dead ahead, 180 is back there, see?" And I said, "I want you saw me talking. Now, when he starts out, he will go this way. Always go that way. And when he goes, he'll always go the opposite direction, see?" So I said, he starts out, follow him from dead ahead up to the stern, see? And report it to the control room. They're plotting all these destroyers, So he'd start down this side, and over here it's 270 degrees. And the operator would say, "Mike," and he'd say, "Bearing 270. That's what I'd say. And then get right here and be, "Mike," and I said, "Bearing 189, see, something like that." And I'd switch over here real quick. And this guy here start down that side, and he'd say, "Mark," and I said, "Bearing 015. Mark, bearing 176. That's it. Ryan would say, the guy would say, "Mark," right out, said, "Target bearing 176. Then he'd go over and say, "Mark, target bearing so and so and so and so." This goes on for about an hour and a half, 2 hours. Finally, the Japs got discussing and left us, So we'd had a tough day down there. They'd dropped the step charge with us. So I was in the radio room doing something, and the radio room was right next to the captain's office, captain's quarters. So he just haunted through the petitions. Said, "Akers, come over a minute, will you?" I went over and he said, "Who was talking that last 20 minutes or so, 40 minutes or so?" I said, "That's Rylander, the new kid in Minnesota." He said, "That's his battle station from now on." He said, "You don't know what that quiet voice of his did to the morale of this ship." Just as calm as Daisy. And made him 3rd class. Radio said. Yeah. And I walked out. He said, "Hey, come back a minute." He said, "Tell Wynn, or tell Rylander, that when we're shooting, they're the targets. But when they're shooting, we're the targets." I thought that was cute. You know? But I thought it was calling them the target.
Well, you really had some experiences. When they depth bomb you, that's no fun deal, is
Oh
it?
God, we were sitting there. We took a depth charge one day. I don't remember which one it was on, but Paul Lewiston, Lieutenant Lewiston, was a first division officer, and he and I were standing in the sound section over here. When you come out of when you come out of officers' quarters back here, you're over there. So, and he was standing on this little 3-step deal.
Mm-hmm.
And one of those torpedo boats, little bitty boats. You can't shoot them with a torpedo anymore.
Yeah.
That bastard went off there 1,000 yards and tuned up his gear. And I listened to him on the sound gear. See?
Yeah.
He really peaked that thing up. Then he came right at us and made a trip over us. And a depth sergeant off over there and over there. See? On each side of us, depth sergeant. Now these are not big ones, but they're dangerous.
Yeah.
So he went on, kept on going.
Had he located you all?
Oh, hell yes, he located me. So we were, after every depth charge, and we would go down to test depth to make sure there's no problem here.
Mm-hmm.
And Luce and I were talking, as we passed 250 feet, all hell broke loose. Evidently, he had dropped 3 depth charges, and one of them was on our damn deck up there. And it couldn't get off the deck. It couldn't, it got below us. So we went down, it blew us to 400 feet. And we went to topside sector damage, and the 3-inch gun was like that. And the bell was gone, ship's bell was gone. The planking was all torn up in the planking's in. But he and I were standing there, and he was standing on one leg and going, you know, like, that really hurts. So you were standing like that, and you hit that. It broke the clock in the radio room. It broke the clock. And that much concussion. And we lost cork off the walls. You know. And the only thing we ever figured out, he had just dropped it on deck.
Gosh, yeah.
So, and when we went below 250, that's when it went off. But it blew us to 400 feet.
400 feet?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So, but that was the kind of deals you had. You had some. But you know, I never. I couldn't be scared. I couldn't. I never saw a man out there really break up.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I saw a couple of them. I was scared. Don't get me wrong.
Sure.
Damn scared of that. You weren't scared. But it was the grunts really were the unsung people out there.
Mm-hmm. Well, you see, that's the point of what Dr. Johnson is trying to do, is to get people like you and who can tell your story, tell their story for them, you might say, you know. And he's already had researchers coming in there, going through those things from big universities, you know, listening to that, and people that are really interested more than, you know, the everyday guy's job in the Navy, the Army, the Air Force, rather than, I don't even talk to colonels. I won't even interview them. You see.
I'll tell you the thing I saw on the 8th of December of 41, 10th December 41. There was an ensign on the Otis, and his name was Mason, Ensign Mason. I'm like, he would have shaved, no kidding, he's just a young guy.
Yeah.
But he was an assistant gunner officer on the deck, you know. And this guy showed more bravery than any man I ever saw in the Navy. Any of them. You'd have thought he was out for a cakewalk.
Mm-hmm.
And he's directing the fire of those 4 anti-aircraft, which doesn't do any damn good because they don't go high enough.
Yeah.
But he was, his face was black with cold, with a powder smoke. But boy, he kept going. And I always respected him. I always had a tremendous amount of respect for that guy. He was as cool as a cucumber was, and battle was going right on. You know. Ensign Mason.
Well, you know, when this thing first started, a couple of lieutenant colonels called in, and so I went out to see him. I guess more than they called in, but I was in to interview too. But you begin to get a different perspective. We're 5 over. That's good. The books that you wrote. Have you got some of those?
Yeah, they're technical books.
They're what?
They're technical books. You know,
Technical books?
Not about the war.
I see.
The only thing I have up there is I have a book, manuscript copy. I never saw it. Didn't try something of a strange thing that happened in World War II. And the books were all technical, and that's after the war.
I see.
I was working for Jim Wayne, Ling Temco boss, you know.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Jim Wayne went out on his own and made started an electronics company, and he became the leader in vibrational testing, digital control vibrational testing.
Mm-hmm.
And I was one of his designers, and I'd gone to school after the war. Became a design engineer, electrical design engineer.
Where'd you go to school?
University of San Diego.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. I went to the University, also went to the University of New Mexico, and a half dozen more. But I was designing for Jim Ling, and he came and had the chief engineer one day and said to me, he said, "Can you write?" I said, "Oh, I don't know. I've never tried it."
Mm-hmm.
And he said, "Well, listen," he said, "the chief writer they got was in Tennessee with a broken leg on vacation." And he said, "We got 3 books that's got to get out of here and get them going."
Mm-hmm.
So I went and started writing, you know. A couple of days, I got all 3 books down where he wants them. A week there, maybe it was. So he had my secretary had them all put. I said, "I'm reproducing them." I sent them out, and boy, they went crazy over it. There's a guy that can analyze a system, not a circuit system. See?
Yeah.
And so I finished up, and he made me the chief of all writing, you know. And I wrote quite a few. And Army, Navy, Air Force. I wrote 3 for NASA, which changed NASA's way of writing.
Mm-hmm.
NASA's way of writing.
Mm-hmm.
And they were $96,000 to build those things with. I did it in my phone.
Is that right?
I didn't get the money, he got the money. But I had the stuff there to do it with.
Yeah.
And so what I did, I had another instance where the big lab up outside Chicago, the big Argonne, Massachusetts, Argonne, had a forward system for charging batteries, keeping a whole battery farm charged.
Mm-hmm.
And they got the name for that book. The name was me. So when I got through writing the book, I told the people at Argonne, I said, "This system won't work." He said, "But so-and-so designed it." I said, "I had Truman design it. It won't work."
Mm-hmm.
What's the name of it? You are asking a system to set there and work on signals as low as 1 millivolt in the whole hour. So I got 30 millivolts in there. I said, you can't do it. And so then you have you.
No,
But I'll show you the last time it's the best stuff.
okay.
Yeah. There's a little tech that you see if you're tech milk a system. Here's a system monitoring radiations, nuclear generating environments.
Right.
In fact, there's the name of the book of this one. Monitoring electromagnetic radiation and nuclear power generating environments.
I see.
And so, as a rule, you're like those books, and there's some well published print. This one sold 7,700 copies. And I still get contact from them. I like that one down the West Coast. All of them asking about this one. And the fact is that this is not the presentation of my master's works, not in the and we built a system in my team. We built a system in my 85 million watt system, and it was before I started on it. After I had delivered it to them, I had to work it. And I was working on the same condenser system and with the system. And so easy, I went with the both of them. And so I sent the book to the third, and I sent one to was perfect. And that was definition. And my wife happened to be with me over at Liquid now in the nuclear fusion division. And that was on nuclear fusion.
I see.
So this book out here is our country. So the jury said, you know why I think? She said, yes, I used to. And we got this book, and we finally helped. I said, they've been using it. I hate to tell you, that's the book I have. They don't listen to it. I said, that's good and on your way. And you got to find this system to stay with it. Looks like these pictures are.
Right.
And they have now. And so I said, I'll be glad to help you all I can if I get. So I said, where is your problem? She said, well, this pipe, this big pipe. I said, okay. So I looked at that and I said, I'll tell you what. That pipe is called a turbine. That turbine is, when you are looking in a inductive load, you've got tremendous inductive power on that load. And if something happens, you've got plenty of power on the hurry to go up. So if what happened, there's a little box, something you don't have, there's a little box that takes the wire energy and directs it into this pipe. And this pipe, got a lot of this nothing out. And that's how we keep it straightened. That's called a turbine. So I don't know. I thought I knew it was something somehow built for you.
That's good. Did you say you'd written one book on something unusual that happened in your old too?
Yeah.
Have you told me about that unusual happening?
No, I haven't.
For 10 years you read not.
Well, I'll tell you. But it has nothing to do with not the people are talking about. Just what happened is, remember how ago we chased the ship into Panama Bay? Okay. The next morning, when we fired, we had an S3 radar, SS radar. And this ship, we could see it. And brought it from the ship. And so we had enough, we could definitely identify it as a Florida route. It didn't last 30 seconds after that. Must have been low.
Yeah.
Well, that went on. And then it wasn't early spring of 30. And after the war, in the 52, the Navy asked me to go back to Korea. I volunteered to go work on the EPS-5 radar. That's EPS-5 radar operations built, and I had a lot to study from it. And I had a lot of experience with setting up operations. And it's a radar that airplanes use on carriers to get close to carriers. And so I agreed to go. So they flew me out to Tokyo. And then I went over from Tokyo on to the military over to Korea to submarine to we started doing work on these things. And we found it the problem was they had gone with the Navy already. They had a job order to retire the wave rod on this one at the mast here. And there was a big ding. Well, when they built a new one, they put dings. So I went got the ship's electrician and ship's radio, ship's handyman. So that was cut the bag. Bill Rock, a group from South. So I came back to the electrician. And also, I had a real good doctor. And I could shoot
Is that right?
and I got to do and so for the dentist, there's something to give on the chest. It's kind of speculation. And there's a dentist on there, and Anderson. He was a solid doctor. So every Friday afternoon, he came out with golf clubs. And they would take the young man and ride down to next day I got some USA, some reading that some and so we had a girl at all times and we go to fix up this particular time down we laid around it off and we came back and Westinghouse had 2 or 3 students and everything. And I knew one of them really well. So we got talking, and they were going to live another. He said, when you get through, come on over, join us. We had a date with some news guy, I'm sure, I can take him down. So we said, this building in the north, away from it, and we had it for some weeks. So they told her, they're going to return. I'll come over. I'll stop down and see that female cigarette. So he gets over there and she did. I'm real good about it. But he really just some milk and things like that. Marvin and a couple of the he said to us, are you married? And she said, no, I'm a widow. He said, oh, I'm sorry. She said, yeah, my husband was killed in the flood in the Rio. There's a guy.
Small world.
Just about me. Isn't that strange?
It's enough to shake you up.
My sister read that and she said, that's so scary. It scares me. But she was the one. She was really the one. He was here for the too. Because we were all around.
Well, let me ask you the question that ordinarily I don't ask, but since it's TV and the radio and television, filled with it. Should we have dropped the bomb?
Well, okay. After that, it's pretty cold. Having talked to my mother, I don't think if you could come up with some kind of way of going, the Japanese make our resistance. They would push the button. Any mother knows push the button.
Yeah.
That's the way.
Right.
Number two is, I always thought that the people who died, and I've been to
Yeah.
the people who died in Hiroshima, there were no there, no kids were alone. That's good. So hard right now.
Right.
And number three was Japan had all the time
Right.
they knew they were going to lose. They knew they were going to lose. So I would have dropped the bomb. And I was seeing the young sisters and the great friends because they were just good.
I think so too, you know. I wouldn't be sitting here talking to you today because I put my time in over home, was ready to go home, and all of a sudden I said, no, you're not going to go home. You're going to go to Eastern China. They're going to retrain you in B-25 for a low-level bombing and invasion of China. And brother, my heart and my stomach something about that thought. I had points to go on. Then, you know, a short time later, the bomb was dropped, and I went home. You know, I wouldn't been. They had figured that in the first 60 days we'd have 80% casualty. And you know, nobody's going to go home. You know, you're going to all get killed at 80% rate. Oh, you know, they would have wiped out a generation.
I got to tell you one last funny story here. We were at sea, and when the announced Western Command, I think it's Stephen Nichols, attending, they would always say, we knew the race would come back.
Mm-hmm.
And so they also had the submarine bill, and they used to stay on.
Mm-hmm.
Right. We had one they were basically on top. So we had a dump. They did quartermaster. He was on the platform talking to your pilot. And we were on the surface. He said, okay, bail out. He said, here's the injection. He said, yeah, it's about right now. It's not that fast. So he old something. Then we started biting some guy. If you don't come now, we're going to shoot you out. He said, how the hell you think you're kidding? But he went on the line. He's still there. Still singing.
Well, you had a interesting and wonderful life, didn't you?
Oh, yeah.
When did you retire? Before you retired?
I didn't try to read it.
I mean, when you retired?
83.
83?
I had a assignment for 18 years. Tuesday, or in Dr. Hospital phone.
Oh, really?
Now, all over.
Oh, I bet.
I kind of sick. Couldn't have it.
Right.
But, I've been in politics.
Mm-hmm.
I've seen the executions.
Yeah.
Behind the
Right.
I played ball. They had if you stood, the council had to give you a shot. You got the shot. That's right, yeah. But our next contact was Indian contact.
Yeah. I see. You really had some real experiences, huh? Great. Well, I was in China a lot, but I never got to see anything. All we were doing was unloading high-octane gas, turn around, go back for some more, you know.
It's just down.
Okay.
Rotating wings,
Yeah,
jet
right,
wings. It was all jets.
right.
But the X-15, X-13 was a jet, all jet. and it would, it could land in a forest if you had a big wire stretched between two trees. It would land on the wire. It would land. We took and landed on a trailer in the front lawn of the Pentagon, and then watched it all morning. I come out and see it. Then we took it off, went out, turned over into vertical flight, flew all over Washington D.C., came back, and then brought down that in the front lawn of the Pentagon again. So.
Is it in production and use now?
No, that afternoon. That afternoon. We moved out of the Pentagon for Eisenhower came out with the order, no more fighters. Oh, Mr. Boy.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So they never used it. But it was the greatest idea I think ever happened in aviation because
Oh, it sounds like it.
imagine this thing, you could put those where they carry two 500-pound warheads,
Mm-hmm.
depth bombs,
Yeah,
and put it on the side of a merchant ship.
yeah.
And that's all you had to have to launch it on there and then take it off. You land on it. It's a pair of davits. You had to have. And you could hover and see a submarine and drop it. Drop it.
Sure.
Yeah.
Well, that was back in the years when they thought that missiles were the answer to everything, didn't they?
They're not, though, that's for sure.
No, that's for sure.
But they, after we landed in the Pentagon, I was briefing some guys over in the Pentagon. These are all admirals and colonels and generals.
Yeah.
And I told them I was on the fly of the back. I said, give me a contract for $250,000. I'll put you a moon in orbit.
Is that right?
Who in the hell wants a moon in orbit?
Huh.
Because we got all the equipment needed. It's all there. It's all right there. All we got to do is scrap on a couple of Hawk motors, missile motors. We couldn't have got it back at that time, but
Mhm.
we could get it in orbit around for it. We stayed in orbit for hundreds of weeks.
Very
But they
good.
did. Who wants that? But we flew it 165 times and never had an accident.
Is that right?
Yeah.
It's always amazed me, of course it's more true in wartime than the other time, the comedy of errors and the waste
Yeah.
and the good ideas that are never used and the bad ideas that they try to promote. And of course that's going on right today.
Well, you know,
What do we need with more of those stealth bombers? You know, it's every pilot, from what I've heard, thinks they're a joke anyway.
Yeah.
But the cost is fantastic.
I know the cost is fantastic, but they
Now the fighter, it's okay, but the bomber, well,
oh yeah.
I've been able to pick up, from guys that are like not my son, but a good friend of his that's still working with that sort of stuff. It just never has proven out, and it can't possibly be worth that tremendous
I'll
cost.
tell you what you do. We were working for Ryan at the time, and there was two of us engineers, electronic engineers, and Roger Feingold and myself, and Pete Gerard were the aeronautical engineer.
Mhm.
Us three developed that plane. I had primarily to do with stabilizing,
Mm-hmm.
but I died 10 deaths every time I think flew anyway. But when we got through, we had a system where we could take the tailpipe and deflect the tailpipe.
Mm-hmm.
10,000 pound thrust engine, Rolls Royce Avon. And we could move that thing up to 100 feet and set there, and it wouldn't move a quarter of an inch in any direction. Just straight up.
Amazing.
And General Yeager,
Yeah.
Chuck Yeager, came down, and I let the general fly. We had an engine hooked up
Mm-hmm.
in harnesses, and it could only move 2 feet this way, 2 feet this way,
Mm.
2 feet that way. I let him fly it. He couldn't fly it. He thought. Then I turned the system on. Then they fly it. Easy, anybody fly the system on, but nobody flies off that system.
Right.
Well, they gave Convair $350 million contract to develop a guidable tailpipe.
Mm-hmm.
And we've got one.
Yeah.
They've already paid for it.
Right.
Convair will never see the day they get that accuracy on that thing. That thing would go out until it's equals 10,000 pounds thrust, equals 10,000 pounds of weight.
Mhm.
And it was just fantastic what to do. And
Well, what did Convair do with those $350 million? Did
they built the Atlas missile. The Atlas missile,
Mm-hmm.
which you steered.
Yeah, I see.
We got the same system. We got the damn thing over there. Man trained, or a man to do it. That's what's wrong with it.
Yeah.
So,
Well, I'll tell you, I didn't hear him, but they said Peter Jennings, #1 newscaster, and it just tore the American veterans and crewmen apart the other night on dropping that bomb. I don't see how anybody that wasn't there at that time can use hindsight to say what you should have done. You had to be there at the time. You had
That's
to
right, yeah.
know. You can't.
Well-
You can second guess anything in the world. Hindsight's 20/20.
I'll guarantee you one thing. I will guarantee you one thing. If the Japs had it, they'd have used it downtown in St. Louis.
Sure.
We used to kill each other on the ship there about. It'll be a hell of a fight when the Japs meet the Germans, when the Japs meet the Russians in St. Louis,
Yeah, right.
because they were both just unstoppable.
Right.
Unstoppable. We could not run them. We could not outrun them.
Yeah, they told me.
And of course we didn't have. See, we had a fleet which didn't get there in time.
Yeah.
We had our aircraft, but we didn't have enough of them.
Well, it's
Well, I'll tell you what. And my comments to them was we were at war
right.
and we were to win,
Right.
and you have no right to consider us for not using the bomb. That's one of our weapons.
That's right.
And I said we didn't actually bomb Pearl Harbor,
Right.
and a lot of people agreed with me. They were
Right.
wrong.
Well, I heard Schwarzkopf the other night, and I read a little article that he wrote. Wasn't very big. Happened to see it in the New York Times. He says it'll happen again. Since we can't have decided we don't have enough money to build up to defend Japan and so forth, they're going to let them do it on their own. Build up their air force, fleet,
China.
right? And he says it'll be a sneak attack, so it won't be like the last one. But he says it'll be some kind. He said because military faction gets going in Japan again, they're going to want to fight.
That's right. Yeah.
Well, I guess I better get on out of here. This completes my interview. I did see some of the technical manuals that he had written, especially the one that he says completely changed NASA's way of writing those instruction books or booklets, whatever you want to call them. But he's a fabulous character and one of the most interesting people I've ever talked to.
One, testing, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 5, 4, 3, 2, 5, 4, 3, 2, 5, 4, 3, 2, 5, 4, 3, 2, 5, 4, 3, 2, 5, 4, 3, 2, 5, 4, 3, 2, 5, 4, 3, 2, 5, 4, 3, 2, 5, 4.